Unfortunately, yes, we've had numerous injuries so far, none of them real serious, but the unfortunate part is I believe we do have our first fatality, and we do have a couple people that are missing at this point.
You can hear from Harriet Jennings as to what her family experienced this morning.
Just watching the water rise, and sheds went by, and trash cans, and barbecue grills, and they come and got us on the boat. And as we was coming down, the boat lost power. We flipped. Me, my 2-year-old great nephew, my son, and my sister all was in one boat, and the boat lost power, and it lost us.
Now, the water is expected to continue to rise here along Rubidoux Creek for at least the next couple hours as residents are able to finally make their way back toward their homes to check on them and make sure everything is okay.
Number 1 in the Ozarks. This is KY3 News at 9 on the Ozarks CW.
Hundreds of homes underwater tonight in Pulaski County after floodwaters rushed through them.
Mandatory evacuation is now in effect until 5 o'clock tomorrow night for those affected. Good evening to you. I'm Ethan Forhetz.
I'm Lisa Rose. Those floodwaters claimed the life of a 4-year-old boy after he was swept away in a car in which he was riding. His mother is still missing.
And the search for that woman has been suspended for the night. KY3's Paula Morehouse has the latest tonight from Waynesville.
Countless people in Waynesville received this evacuation notice, and they're packing up for the night. They have to leave their homes to go to safer ground. On street after street and house after house, families spent the early evening grabbing the few things they could to leave. That after the fire department and other emergency crews knocked on doors issuing a mandatory evacuation. With the threat of rain, up to 250 people were told to find somewhere safer to stay for the night. And power and water services were going to be cut off as a safety measure. All this comes after these people were hit by an overnight deluge of water.
No, you weren't really prepared. About 3 o'clock, you could tell that it was flooding, so tried to get out, then, and came back in the morning to see what was happening, and this is it. Propane tanks floating down your street. So.
And it got about 3.5, 4 inches inside there, which is just enough to mess everything up.
Governor Jay Nixon has declared a state of emergency. He will be in the area in the morning to meet with local leaders and to look at the damage firsthand. In Waynesville, Paula Morehouse, KY3 News.
About 55 people are staying the night at a shelter in St. Robert, but more people were expected to show up.
For more now on the affected area, affected by the flooding, KY3's Jerry Jacob joins us. Jerry?
Thank you, Ethan. For those not familiar, this area of devastating flooding is right along Interstate 44. This is Springfield, this is St. Louis, and it's right between Rolla and Lebanon, which is where you'll find Waynesville, St. Robert, Fort Leonard Wood, and up here Jerome. And you see the Gasconade River snaking through here, okay? And also the Rubidoux snaking through, right through the middle of the town of Waynesville. It's right here along what's called Old 66. Normally, in most of these places, you'll see there's nothing on either side. You'll see a comfortable line of, trees and fields. But right in here, you'll see these areas of houses here in Waynesville, Pulaski County. And in the town of Jerome, which is just right up the road in Phelps County, it's the same story. We'll hear more from Jerome here in a second. But here's Jerome right along the Gasconade. And there you see a lot of houses. Very different from what we saw from above today. Normally it's a nice clean line. Check this out. The water well outside those lines of trees. Just an amazing and disturbing amount of water in excess of what is normally there. A historically high level for the Rubidoux. It is hard to tell where the Rubidoux or Gasconade normally flows in these pictures. The bank's expanding well into the fields on either side, the roads and the residential areas, the very few of them that there are, causing evacuations, as you just saw from Paula, and damage to so much property. And remember, all this occurring in just a very short time span. More on the way tonight and as far as rainfall, and this could very well go even higher than it is already. Let's talk about Waynesville real quick. This is the area. The Rubidoux goes right through the town of Waynesville, and this is the area of the evacuation. There's the Rubidoux, and there's those residential areas on both sides. Near Dyer Street, the area of Valley Road, under a mandatory evacuation for tonight. Some of those homes already severely damaged by the rising waters, but more in the danger zone tonight as more rain is expected to fall, and this Rubidoux could go even higher than its record level today. Ethan.
Boy, a lot of people watching closely tonight. Jerry Jacob. But those living along the Gasconade River say it started slowly rising several days ago, but it was last night that it came up quickly, very quickly. And then this morning is when residents decided to leave. About 6 o'clock this morning, in fact, state troopers and Phelps County deputies started knocking on doors, warning the about 40 families or so in town, in the town of Jerome, to get out. The water was expected to crest tonight. Homeowners worked today to get their belongings to higher ground.
Just get it. I mean, there ain't no time to feel nothing. It's got just a million things rolling through your head trying to get, you know, what you need to get and what you can't worry about, you know, and just stuff like that. The cleanup and everything being destroyed that's like the decks being ripped off, because see, flood insurance don't pay for none of that.
You know, you just try to get down here early and try to get everybody warned. And the people that don't live here, just moved here, they don't have a clue what it's like when it comes. When it comes and you start seeing water right here, you better be going.
And that's an instance. The last time that happened, when the water got really high, just a few years ago in 2008. And the last time homes were actually wiped out by the river was back the major flood of 1993. You all remember that. And unfortunately, there is more rain in the forecast.
Chief Meteorologist Ron Hurst joins us from the Storm Team Center. Ron?
Well, I tell you, it's easy to see why those places flooded this morning. Lakeway picking up 5.5 inches of rain along with Brumley. Richland at 6. Fort Leonard Wood just south of there, a little over 6.25. Houston 5.8 this morning. Plato almost 5 inches of rain. At the official recording stations, 2.2 in West Plains, 2.2 up in Lake of the Ozarks, and a little more than ½ an inch in Rolla. Tonight's weather charts are coming in. We may lift this a little bit farther to the north and to the east, so hopefully it won't rain in the same area.
Floodwaters swept away a little boy who died. His mother is still missing tonight. We know of hundreds of, or at least more than 100 of businesses and homes still underwater. And now they're preparing for more rain, possibly. KY3's Paula Morehouse has the latest from Waynesville.
At this hour, the water is still raging. In fact, you can see it reaching the top of light posts in this area. How many of these do you think you're going to hand out today?
We've probably handed out probably 50 at this time.
Those are just the homes the fire department reached. Other emergency crews were doing the same. In total, up to 250 people were evacuated.
These are the pictures from up above. Exclusive video giving us a bird's eye view of the just major flooding there in Waynesville. We have a lot more of the aerials and the flooding and its widespread damage for you at ky3.com. It is just a mess. A canoe rental facility underwater and water gushing up. Water, the story of the day, of course, and a lot more of those pictures at ky3.com.
We do have a report now from Dustin Hodges. He just filed it. Let's take a look at what he's finding out this morning. The rain has picked back up here in Waynesville, and as you can see, it's causing some flash flooding here in the streets. You see this wave of water. It's rushing down Missouri Highway 17 here in Waynesville and down to what is Rubidoux Creek at the bottom of the hill.
We kick up another round of storms, and then watch this. We repeat the process tonight. Here comes another blob. It's just repeat, repeat, repeat. This looks to happen again Thursday night and Friday before we hopefully get a little bit of a break.
This is where some of the heaviest flooding was yesterday. Here's a piece of debris that had washed down. And as you can see from this rain we've already got this morning, streets are already starting to fill back up.
Well, even those not in the flooded areas are dealing with high waters. A 14-mile section of I-44 remains closed from mile marker 172 to 186. You saw there earlier, a photo from earlier today. You can see the water has reached the interstate guardrails. MoDOT leaders say there are parts of the freeway where the water is 6 feet above the road. This has caused quite the headache for drivers, some forced to take a 2-hour detour. Officials have tried to keep the left lanes clear for response vehicles. So far, they say there has not been a problem, but just ask the drivers. Several drivers stopped at nearby gas stations, had to make new plans.
I have plans this evening in St. Louis. So it's like showering, getting dressed, getting ready to go, so everything's pushed back. I'm almost tempted to go home and try again tomorrow.
What's your deadline to get to Tennessee?
Well, it's supposed to be there tomorrow.
What do you think's going to happen?
Looks like it's going to be a little bit late.
Now, this is just one area, but there are several here across Waynesville. Folks are having to throw away pretty much all of their belongings. People here on this street are going through furniture, everything they own, and just having to throw them into trailers. But one good part of all of this, the volunteers are already showing up everywhere. Friends and neighbors and complete strangers are already helping out with the cleanup. At the Red Cross shelter at the St. Robert Community Center, donations have poured in, with volunteers sorting through piles and piles of donated clothing and other household items so flood victims will be able to easily find what they need.
In an effort to relieve some of the flooding, rain had raised the level of the lake to a foot above the maximum level of 660 feet. This morning's release was delayed because emergency crews evacuated homes and campsites along the Osage River. Before they did that, the event drew a crowd.
But guess what? Front stays in the area. Here's Friday afternoon. And here's Friday night. The pattern just won't break. And so where exactly these bands set up from night to night is a little challenging, and it's a day-to-day issue.
People were hanging on to trees. People were on top of their mobile homes.
Early morning escape. Dozens in Hollister forced from their homes by the flooding. The close call some had in keeping their heads above water.
Plus, waiting and watching in Jerome, the Gasconade crested higher than expected, flooding dozens of homes there, and more rain could be on the way. Good evening to you. I'm Emily Wood.
And I'm Jerry Jacob in for Ethan. A third day now of torrential rainfall, more roads out, more evacuations. Today, one of the hardest hit areas was Hollister.
Our team coverage continues tonight as devastating floods affect even more people. Plus, we have new information on the little boy swept away in the flash flooding in Waynesville Tuesday.
Also, Chief Meteorologist Ron Hurst is tracking the next round of storms. It's not over yet, folks, but we begin with KY3's Linda Russell in Hollister, where about 50 homes had to be evacuated this morning.
It was around 3:30 to 4 o'clock this morning. The Turkey Creek came up faster and higher than anyone around here expected, causing serious flooding damage on both sides of the creek. The fire department tells us about 50 homes had to be evacuated. Dozens of people had to be rescued. There's some miraculous and devastating stories like those in the Hidden Valley Mobile Home Park. It was a very close call at Tracy and Ricky Nelson's house. A loose mobile home knocked theirs off its blocks, and they had to get out.
That's when I busted my window and shoved my kids to the roof.
Ricky and his friend Chris then tried to help Tracy to the roof.
He had me by the hand, and I had my foot on the top of the screen door to pull on that. A branch broke and knocked both of us into the water.
This is the spot where Ricky's wife Tracy and his friend Chris clung to life, hanging onto the basketball goal in the rushing water that at that time was about 10 feet deep. Firefighters' attempts to reach them by boat failed when the boat flipped. Walking on roofs, they were finally rescued.
There were debris hitting my legs, hitting all over, all the whole time, and, just hold on and pray. That's what I did.
My wife and both of my kids are perfect. My landlady's going to take care of me.
People there are picking up the pieces, attempting to start over, but the rising waters are causing some problems. KY3's Ashley Reynolds continues our team coverage tonight.
The situation here in Waynesville is expected to get worse before it gets better. Folks that live here along Valley Road, as you can see, are expected to get more water. Here in just a few hours, they're asked to leave their homes. But perhaps it says something about the people here in Waynesville because they're using this time to clean up.
As you can see, the water lines up on the wall. That's basically where the water was all through the house.
Time is of the essence. Victims are cleaning up before they must leave again. Consider it a head start to remove belongings and even rip out the carpet before water reaches these homes again.
How are you doing?
Tired. Frustrated, but, no one was hurt, so, that's the main thing. Yeah, it's thousands and thousands of dollars, and I'll just be straight with you, because we're not in the floodplain, we don't have flood insurance.
Flood victims I talked to hope some type of assistance will be made available to them.
People who live along the Gasconade in Jerome still can't reach their homes. The river flooded that area Wednesday, and it isn't over yet. The fury of the Gasconade this summer has been worse than anyone here could have imagined.
There's nothing you can do at all but watch it come and just hope and pray it don't come any higher.
When their neighbors evacuated Wednesday morning, Fran and Roger Beam stayed. They live about 350 feet away from the river, just far enough to be out of harm's way. But that doesn't make the waiting and watching any easier.
We can go back home, and they can't.
The Wilsons are one of the families who can't. They came back to see the flood for the first time today. The water was expected to crest at 27 feet, just below the second story of their home. Things they stashed upstairs during the emergency evacuations should have been safe.
Kids' clothes,
all the shoes, all of our clothes, blankets, beddings, couches. I mean, we ran out of time and we ran out of room.
But the Gasconade crested 5 feet higher than expected, flooding their entire home and dozens of others.
I can't imagine losing another house.
The river crested at that 100-year record of 32 feet Wednesday night, and the water started going back down this morning. But people here say they are still watching it very closely. They say they know the river well, and they are expecting it to rise again with the next rainfall expected Friday morning.
You know, it's kind of hard to deal with at times, that's for sure, like now. And this is like these 500-year floods are coming way too soon.
The Beams spent nearly all day Wednesday hauling trailers full of their neighbors' belongings even farther uphill. Those who had evacuated couldn't get back to Jerome then due to road closures.
You just wish you could just take a dozer and just start pushing dirt up just to keep it out, but there ain't no way.
Being here on the river is a way of life for these families. They plan to come back, clean up, and rebuild.
We live here.
This is our home, primary home.
This isn't just a weekend thing. We live here full time.
It could be the middle of next week before the people in Jerome can get back into their houses. Families in nearby Newburgh, meanwhile, started the cleanup process today after flash flooding affected the main street there and about 20 homes yesterday.
You grew up there. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, I haven't. In 2008, the water got pretty high in the Gasconade. They did have to close that main bridge for a while that connects Dixon to Rolla to the interstate, but nothing like this.
It is historic. Well,
It's
after
tough.
the drought we had last summer, then all this rain this year, and more could still fall over the next few days.
Get a break. Chief Meteorologist Ron Hurst tracking it all for us from the Storm Team Center. Ron?
Yeah, we were looking at some radar estimates of rainfall, and there's some chunks of Laclede County and Pulaski County that picked up 20 inches of rain this week.
This is KY3 News at 6.
I'm here, Aunt Doris. I'm right here.
There she is. Told you she was okay.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're okay.
Round after round after round of storms pushing up rain totals, and now a new level of misery for those who've been flooded out of their homes.
The situation here is expected to get worse before it gets better. Folks that live here along Valley Road have been asked to leave their homes here in a few hours in fear of the rising water. Perhaps it says something about the people here in Waynesville because they're not sitting around. They're cleaning up.
Everything in this family room, from the computers, TVs, the Coca-Cola, all the toys, bedding, all this was soaked. This probably had the most water as it came in through the door.
Andy Anderson is starting over.
It probably came up about 2 foot in here.
It's a common problem.
They called me from Springfield today and told me my claim was denied.
Everything that was wet, they put in this room with the dehumidifier.
And those with flood insurance say it's not a saving grace.
This was the water line.
John Washburn got the coverage when his basement flooded a few years ago.
And we've paid for that insurance for many years under the assumption that if this was ever to happen again, we'd be covered.
He says he'll have to pay for most of this mess out of pocket.
My heart is that for the people of Waynesville, I have flood insurance and I have to pay. And I know there's many homes in Waynesville that were flooded or even destroyed. Is it flood insurance or not?
Flood victims I talked to hope some type of assistance will be made available to them.
She was standing on the back block right here on the 2x12, and I was in between the trees.
One rescue attempt failed when the boat flipped, but by walking on roofs, they were helped to safety.
And one of them guys just bailed off in there and swam her back to the side of the trailer, and we pulled her up.
The mobile home that was sitting here floated clear to the other end of the street, and it's the one that hit Ricky and Tracy's home. While the home that was sitting here next to it completely washed away, it's gone into Turkey Creek.
I think it just disintegrated as the creek took it.
About 10 homes in the mobile home park are destroyed. Tracy and Ricky and their 2 kids also lost both their vehicles down the creek, but they're thanking God for sparing their lives.
There's the answer. Yeah, that's thanks to Church Army. Made me believe.
We all survived, and if all we got out with our lives, I thank God, and that's, you know, we can't replace none of us.
Ricky and Tracy, their kids, and other families are staying at the New Beginnings Fellowship Church, the Red Cross shelter that is set up there. At last count, about 30 people staying there to get those immediate needs taken care of as these flood victims start to rebuild their lives.
We're not done with the heavy rain yet.
No, another round again tonight. Ron Hurst joining us now from the Storm Team Center with another wave of storms.
Well, Jerry and Lisa, I have some updated information for you right now. The National Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm watch for northern Arkansas, all of northern Arkansas, until 7 o'clock tonight. Now, this is bad news.
Nearly everyone here affected by the flood is saying the same thing. They've never been through anything like this before, and they didn't know where to turn for help.
And not having a home for your kids is very stressful.
Ashley Hammock was one of more than 100 flood victims in line at the Multi-Agency Relief Center at Westside Baptist Church in Waynesville Tuesday, trying to figure out what to do next.
I have a whole family. I mean, there's 5 of us staying with another whole family, and it's hard.
The Hammock's home is about a mile from the Gasconade River in Jerome, typically safe from flooding, but not this time. The record-breaking crest of 32 feet meant her family had to get out, and fast.
We've done it so fast that basically we got to change of clothes for everybody and headed up to my parents, and then everything else they just put on blocks, and which the blocks weren't high enough.
Families came to the church for help with immediate needs like food, clothes, and shelter. With the dozen or so agencies on hand are also helping them think long-term.
It was 5:45 in the morning, and the neighbor come over and started pounding on my door.
Jennifer Ellis had just minutes to get her family to safety, steps away from the Ruby-Doo in Waynesville.
It didn't register at first until I actually stepped outside and seen the water coming up the sidewalk. Wow. And it was like, we grabbed a few clothes, diapers, and that was pretty much it.
It's one of the many places where no one expected such massive flooding. Now homeless, figuring out those next steps can seem nearly impossible.
I've never been in a disaster area. Had to deal with a disaster like this, and
you don't know what to do.
I'm lost.
This is just the first step in what will likely be a very long recovery process. Emergency management workers in each individual county have to work to assess the damage. That could take some time, but it's a process that has to happen before FEMA can then step in.
Well, yesterday here in Hollister, we showed you a lot of the flooded homes, but the businesses here were also hit hard. As you can see, all of this debris was part of the creek early yesterday morning when it came completely out of its banks. This building, it says we've moved, and thank goodness they did. There was a feed store here that now would be completely destroyed as the building is now. And if you come over here, you can see that the outer wall here is severely damaged. The force of the water actually pushed out the tin and destroyed this building. The Salvation Army has their mobile unit here delivering food and water to cleanup workers to help them keep working. They're bringing it out here into the field so folks don't have to go to the shelter. There's other buildings back here. All of these businesses were also flooded. We're told there was a beauty shop here, there was a plumber, and just various businesses. Some vehicles were actually washed into Turkey Creek, which is in the tree row that you see over there.
Pouring rain and floating debris. It all feels like deja vu for one Conway resident who spent Saturday afternoon helping his mother-in-law, who was hit hard by flooding.
We are moving out all the furniture and all the belongings because this is the second time it's happened. It happened earlier in the week.
Between 1 and 4 a.m., emergency responders say weather conditions in Conway got bad very quickly.
Starting about 1 o'clock this morning, we had a heavy downpour of rain. It flooded one of the local rivers here.
Last week's rains washed out many roads across the Ozarks, leaving a lot of work for road crews. And some of them, like Highway BB here in Laclede County, are still closed because of that and inconveniencing a lot of drivers.
Powerful floodwaters did a number on many Ozarks roads.
Most of the damage we're seeing is that the force of the water undermines that surface and takes it off, actually, in places.
This spot on Highway BB is prone to flooding.
It happens maybe once a year or so, but it's not near the extent that it was this time.
This time, the Dryaglaze Creek rose much higher than usual and tore off the asphalt surface of the bridge.
It just wasn't safe. It was not passable.
So for the past week, Lisa and her family have put a few extra miles on their cars.
It takes an extra 15 minutes or so to drive through Statland to get to town, and when you go to work at 7 and you have to be there at 7, that's an extra 15 minutes, so it's getting up a little early.
but the repairs here are now well underway.
We're putting the roadway back in a concrete surface, hopefully to alleviate the risk of that happening again.
The Barclays can't wait for their road to reopen.
You know, you add an extra 30 minutes to your day and the gas money that it takes.
Road crews working on dozens of damaged spots just ask for some time.
We're hoping to get this road open very soon, and we'll move on to our next challenge as soon as we get this one taken care of. And we do very much appreciate our public's patience.
MoDOT officials think this bridge here on Highway BB could be finished by the end of the week.
If I stand still enough, I'll get bit. Mackenzie Moore spends a lot of time outdoors.
All day, every day.
She works at a nursery in Springfield.
It's nice to have that freedom to be outside and the fresh air.
But the freedom of fresh air comes with a price. It's a small price, but a pesky one. Mosquitoes.
These are some bites here and probably right there.
Thanks to the wet weather and extreme flooding, we can expect more of these annoying insects.
Mosquitoes can lay their eggs in as little as a teaspoon of water.
And if you've seen one of these, it's not your imagination. These extra large, menacing mosquitoes are called gallinippers. And